Hey guys, welcome to another Davinci Resolve 17 editing tutorial, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do basic color correction. Also, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell to stay notified for my next uploads. Also check my social media accounts to see some awesome behind the scenes content of projects that I'm working on. Before I open up Davinci Resolve 17, I just want to quickly go over the differences between color correction and color grading. So the color correction process is to make the footage look exactly the way the human eye sees it. So you're fixing up skin tones, you're making the whites in your clip white, and color grading is where you create the visual tone and aesthetic of your film. So before you start the color grading process, you want to make the footage look exactly the way the human eye sees it. Okay, let's open up Davinci Resolve 17 and let's start color correcting. Okay, so I've opened up Davinci Resolve 17 and I've added my clips in. So what I've got here is footage from my Panasonic GH4 and I'm using Vlog, and it looks pretty gross at the moment. I've just simply duplicated these two footage, and then I've also got some footage from a short film that I was the cinematographer on. If you want to have a look at the trailer, I will be putting a link in the description below, so definitely check that out. So here are just two clips, and these were shot on my Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and I shot this in Blackmagic Raw. So let's start color correcting. I'm just going to go to the color tab. So as you can see with this clip, I've got one of those color checkers. Now, sometimes, or most of the time when I shoot, I don't always have this as a reference point. If you can have something white in the shot as a reference point, that would be great. If I didn't have this, I could probably use this box in the background as our reference point. There are a couple of ways you can do color correction inside of Davinci Resolve. I'm going to show you the manual way, a very easy way to do it, and show you how I do it when I'm shooting in RAW. So the first way I'm going to show you is I'm just going to go over to our primary wheels. And before I get into color correcting, I want to quickly show you this at the bottom right. If you've never used color correction software before and this is your first time looking at a how-to video, just quickly, is when you're shooting in a profile that's log and there's not a lot of color and there's no contrast, or there's very low contrast, when you look at the scopes, a lot of it will be sitting in the middle range, and simply looking at a scope is the bottom part of the scope at 0. This is where the black point will be black, and then our white point here. So what we want to do is we want to basically pull our scopes, and to do that you can just go to our color wheels, and I'm just going to go to primaries, and I'm going to be adjusting the lift. I'm going to be pulling the lift down so we can get our black points hitting the black mark right there at 0. I don't want it to go past that because I'll be losing information and we're going to be losing detail, and we don't want to do that. And I'm just going to leave it sitting around there, and then I'm going to go to gain, and I'm just going to bring our gain up. I can also adjust my gamma as well to bring the mid-tone details up a bit more if I want to see a bit more in the middle range. If you want to, for the next part, you can right click and add a new node, a new corrector node. And what this does is it breaks up the different parts of the color correction process. So if you make a mistake, so let's say we adjust the gamma here and we don't like it, we can just simply reset it and it's not going to affect what we did before. I'm just going to delete it because when I do color correction, I like to work in one node, so I'm adjusting all the different elements that I need in the one node. So the next thing that I like to work on is the contrast. So this will be pulling the image up into the different directions. So the brighter part of the image will be pulled up a bit more, and then the darker part of the image will be squashed towards the black a bit more, adding contrast. So I'm just going to boost this. I'm going to crank this up pretty high just so you can see what it's doing, and it's making the darker part of the image darker and then the brighter parts much brighter. So when I do contrast, I like to have it sitting at 1.25 range. This is my preference. You can of course go higher or lower if you want to. So the next part I like to adjust is the saturation, because this gives you the color back into the image, because at the moment you can see that the colors are pretty muted. You can see the blue light in the background has a fair bit of color in it, but then my skin tones are a bit gray, and then my blue jumper isn't as blue as I want it to be. So I can go in and just crank the saturation up all the way, and now you can see the color has been reintroduced. I like it at 100, but some people might think it's a bit too saturated, so you can pull it down. Now with saturation, it's fairly subjective. You can have it a bit lower if you want to, if you feel like that some of the colors are too vibrant and it pops. And I can see a lot more color in my skin now. I can see the blue on the door back here a bit more, and then I can see my blue jumper. So when you're filming in certain scenarios, I would make sure that you get the colors looking as close as you can in camera. So if you're shooting in daylight, you make sure your camera is set to daylight settings and all of that sort of stuff, just so you get things as close as possible. Now this is a good starting point, because with color correction you want it to be you want to add the contrast, making sure blacks are black, whites are white, and skin tones are looking good. And if you can get your color correction to that point, then it is good. You can also, if there's a bit of a color shift in the white, you can actually, I'm just going to create another node just so I don't ruin what I've done, just because I already like what I've done here. But let's say that your color temperature was not correct. You can actually use this icon here for white balance, and you can go to the gray, and now since I've clicked on the gray, it's made everything white. So when let's just quickly make a new corrector, and I'm just going to show you. Let's just isolate this. So since now I've added white, there is no color shift. So when I check this, everything should be fairly balanced and white. So when everything is lined up correctly, this will make your image white. And as you can see, when I look at the histogram, everything is pretty much aligned. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go back to Parade. I can just reset the node or just delete the node by hitting delete and selecting it. So I'm happy with this. So now I've got my contrast in, I've got my color in with saturation. So I'm happy with this. I want to go over to the next clip, and I'm going to show you a very quick way of doing it. So I just want to quickly go and show you my color space. So I'm just going to go to the top here, go to File, and go to Project Settings, and make sure that we're in the color management part of it. And then color science by default will be Davinci YRGB. And then timeline color space is Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4. I pretty much use this color space for all my projects, so that's a good reference point there. And this is our output. This is what our timeline setting is at. So I'm just going to cancel that. Go over to Open Effects, and I'm going to scroll down to Resolve FX Color, and I'm going to find Color Space Transform, and I'm just going to drag and drop it onto my node. So there's two main settings we're going to be adjusting. We've got our color space and our input gamma. And when we adjust the input color space, we want to choose the camera that we shot it on. So it's important to know what camera you're shooting it on. So if you're shooting on a Sony camera and you're using S-Log3, you want to make sure you choose that setting. So I shot this on the Panasonic Vlog, so I'm just going to scroll down to P, and I'm going to choose Panasonic V Gamut. And as you can see, it's changed the color a bit. So now we've got our color introduced, but there is no shift in our contrast and our levels, our black point and our white point. So to adjust that, we just go to input gamma and we go to our camera, so Panasonic, and we want to choose Vlog, and that will bring our black points down to black and then our brighter parts up. And that's looking really good. Now this is a good starting point for color correction, so I'm fairly happy with that. But of course, I think there's a bit of a color shift in the whites, so we want to fix that. We can just go to Add Node, and we'll add that in. And then I'm just going to do the same thing as we did before. Yeah, so then we select that, and then we go over to this gray section here, our gray card, and just select that. And when we click, you could see there was a bit of a color shift there. So now our whites are white. All right, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to move on to our next clip. So our next clip, we've got our character here. This is our Blackmagic Raw. And there's a really easy way to just do a very simple color correction. Assuming that you've got everything shot how you want it to be shot, and you've got things looking good in camera. We're just going to go over to our camera raw settings, and we're going to go to clip, change it from project to clip, and then I'm just simply going to click all of these options here, and then now we've got a really good starting point. Of course, we can go in and adjust a few more things, making sure our whites are white and all of that sort of stuff, but this looks fairly white, so I'm going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to go to our last clip, and then I'm not going to worry about the camera raw settings. I can just simply go to our color space transform and then just choose our color space. So I'm just going to go to Blackmagic Pocket 4K Film Gen 4, and that will give us our color. And then I'm going to go to input gamma, and I'm going to change it to Design Pocket 4K Film Gen 4. And then now we've got our contrast and colors back in. You can think of the color space transform as basically a LUT. You can add LUTs to your clips as well if you want to go down that road as a starting point, but I prefer to use color space transform because I find it to be a bit more accurate. So that's how you do some basic color correction inside of Davinci Resolve in the color tab. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to give this video a like. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell to stay notified for my next uploads. And I'll see you guys next time.